You have a mat? I got one. Yeah? Yes.
Hare Krishna. Jai Gurudev. Mukam karoti vachalam bhangam langayate girim jatkripatamaham vande Shri Guru dinataranam Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripas sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebho vaishnavebho namo namah Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pridayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tishe Namah. Alright, well, I don't know if anyone else had anything in mind, but recently we've been reading Sri Prabhupada Jivanamrita and coming across some verses of Maharaj Kulashekar, and when we were in Italy we had a little discussion about him, and I'd like to read a couple of verses by him within Prabhupada Jivanamrita, but are also well known, or if it's known exactly when, but very long, very ancient. After the Leela of Lord Krishna, but not so much later. And so this is a verse. It says, Naham bande tava charanayor dandama danda hetu kumbhi pakam gurumapi hare narakam napanetum ramya ramamridu tanudata nandane napirantum Bhave bhave hridaya bhavane bhavayeyam bhavantam. Saying, I do not pray at your two lotus feet to be freed from duality, to evade the fearsome hell of boiling oil, or to enjoy beautiful women with supple creeper-like bodies in a pleasure garden. O Hari, birth after birth, may I meditate upon you in the temple of my heart. I'll read it one more time. I do not pray at your two lotus feet to be freed from duality, to evade the fearsome hell of boiling oil, or to enjoy beautiful women with supple creeper-like bodies in a pleasure garden. O Hari, birth after birth may I meditate upon you in the temple of my heart. So, three things negated and one thing desired. Right? And the reading of the verse is very nice, very beautiful sounding verse, right? As he says, Naham bande tava charanayor dandam adanda hetu. So, the word dvanda can mean two. So, he uses dvanda and adanda. So sometimes danda means duality as a state of two, or it can simply mean two of something. So first meaning, tava charanayor dandam means your 2 feet, your lotus feet. So he's saying, I pray to your 2 lotus feet, but not for advandva. Means I pray to the 2, but not to get the 1. Something like that. And so advanda is a term that's used from time to time to refer to the state of not being subject to duality. So that's a reference to liberation. Early in the Gita we hear this phrase, Shitoshna Sukha Dukkha Da, that inevitably by having a body, by having senses, and the senses contacting their objects, then we are subjected to the dualities of pleasure and pain, loss and gain, heat and cold, and so on and so forth. So these are a perpetual cause of discomfort and uncertainty. So to seek to no longer be subject to that duality means to seek to become free from entanglement in samsara or material existence. So in other words, liberation. So first point he's saying is that I am not praying to you to achieve that. I don't want that. So this is a strong statement. To say I don't want freedom from duality is to say I'm ready for duality. I embrace the duality. I embrace all the adversity that may come for an indefinite period in the future. Bring it on. And then he goes further to say, the particular phrase here is kumbhi paka. So we hear in Bhagavatam about many sort of hellish plains or hells, if you will, that persons who commit particular sins are sent to. And one of them, which seems to be the most commonly discussed of them, is called kumbhi paka. So kumbha means oil and paka means cook. So it means the state in which you get fried. So he's saying that I am not praying to you to evade that. Although it is very fearsome, although that sounds terrifying, I am not appealing to you for the sake of escaping that. What a courageous statement. In the humility of a Vaishnava, they may think, I am actually fit for such a thing. My wrongs are so grievous. Really, it is not unbefitting that I be subjected to that sort of correctional measure. So for him to say this is to say, for the sake of the prospect of really serving you, for the prospect of having service to you, or even remembrance of you, for the prospect of having any sort of relationship with you, I'm ready to undergo even that. And then the third line, Ramya Ramam Ridu Tanulata Nandane Napi Rantum. So Nandane may refer to a pleasurable place in general, but also may have the specific meaning of the gardens in Svargaloka. We're told that the gardens near Indra's palace are called the Nandana gardens. So whether it means here, some nice language is also used to describe a beautiful woman, saying that her body is like a creeper which is soft and supple and very pleasing to one who touches it. So to enjoy with a woman of such a figure, either in this world or even in Svargaloka, so we can add where women are even more beautiful, that is not my purpose, that is not my interest in praying to you. So, in other words, to say, for your sake, my Lord, I am ready to forego what for some may represent the epitome of enjoyment or pleasure. I'm ready to forego that, and I'm ready to undergo even what most consider the ultimate difficulty or suffering condition. I'm ready to give up the greatest pleasure and embrace the greatest suffering without any complaint or desire to no longer go through that process. So that, the final line, Bhave bhave hridaya bhavane bhavayayam bhavantam. So that I may meditate upon you, I may remember you, I may feel a connection with you in my heart, or literally in the temple or in the abode of my heart. And he adds bhave bhave. So generally that means birth after birth, or more broadly, in condition after condition, in whatever state of body, state of mind, state of circumstances in which I may be, in this ongoing flux of states that never ends, that I'm eager to be a part of, I want only that I may feel my connection with you, that I may meditate upon you. Such a strong statement, right? What could produce such an intensity of feeling? Such a strong feeling of attachment for the Lord, such an intense feeling of immediacy or necessity for Him. It may seem hard to believe that someone could come to feel such a strong thing. We see some glimpses maybe in the world. If we look at the dedication shown by a great warrior, or by a great athlete, by persons significant throughout history for having done a great thing, then we see, they had such strong conviction or such strong desire to reach this particular goal or this end. Right? And sometimes it's even seen, if persons could apply some of that drive that they have towards Krishna, they would be doing very well. Like the words of Chintamani to Bilva Mangal, when he, what can we say, successfully traverses a great obstacle course to meet Chintamani. Then she says, you've made such an effort to come to see me. If you applied that in the search for Sri Krishna, so to speak, you would be a great Vaishnava. And that was all he needed to hear, and all actually she needed to hear, to realize what was really worthy of all sacrifice and dedication. So when we hear a statement like this, such an intensity of feeling, then it naturally must call us, it must pull upon us, it must call us to make us think, what is the cause of that? How is it that this person has come to feel such an intense thing? And what a wonderful feeling that must be. And I'll read one more, the following verse of the text. Nasta dharme navasunichaye naiva kamupabhoge yad bhavyam tad bhavatu bhagavan purva karma anurupam etat pratyam mama bahumatam janma janmantarepi tvad param bhoruha jugagata nischala bhaktirastu. I have no regard for religion, dharma, riches, artha, or partaking of enjoyment, kama. Let what is to be, O Lord, according to my previous deeds. This is the desired end, This is the desired end most cherished by me. So again, dharma, artha, kama and moksha are dismissed. And he's saying, I am not interested in any of those. In dharma, in artha or in kama. Previous karma means whatever is due to me as a result of my previous actions, then let that come. I'm not going to try to fix that or adjust that. Many people may be due to them or to know about it ahead of time or something. He's saying, whatever it is, let it be. I am not concerned about that. The verse of the Shikshastakam, right? Saying, na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam va. So in some commentaries, those four things are acquainted with dharma, artha, kama and moksha. And then saying, birth after birth, let me have unconditional bhakti. So here, the very same thing. Birth after birth, let me have, the word used is nischala, unwavering bhakti for you. So here we find, we could say, a parallel expression or a congruent expression with that of Mahaprabhu himself. Just as Mahaprabhu himself told it, here we find precedent for that. And with this added detail, that as I aspire for this and as I disregard all of that, I'm fine with whatever may be. So this, we could say, connects closely with this other verse. Tattenu kampam susamikshamano bhunjane vatma kritam vipakam. That as I undergo the results of my previous deeds, let me learn to properly see or beautifully see your mercy or your favor coming within that. That every wave generated by my previous action is actually a favorable wave, or more specifically, carries the Lord's favor with that towards me. So, as we pass through our journey in this life, this is the theme, or the ongoing aspiration. That as we move through all these things with the faith that they're necessary, they're purifying, they are instructive, they are here as the grace of the Lord, the sweet will of the Lord pouring over us, that they may all give rise to this sort of prayer, this sort of sense of surrender and devotion to Him. And along the way, so many details, so many facts or figures or events or things, predictable and unpredictable. But this is like the theme, this is the genre, if you will, of thought amongst the persons of purity of heart. That it is all coming to contribute to that ultimate narrative of the eternal souls aspiring for His eternal service. And where are we? Where have we come from? We don't know. Our existence has no beginning, and how have we come into our present situation? We don't know that. And where will we go next? We also don't know that. There's that song Gurudev mentioned, one Bengali song. Kothai chilam, kothai lam, kothai jabo bhavinai. Where have I come? Where was I? Where am I now? Where will I go? I don't know. We don't know any of these things. But we do know that they're all happening under His loving glance. And in the midst of them, there is always the opportunity to chant His holy name and aspire to render service unto Him, unto His devotees, so long as He graces us with that, with this connection, this current of bhakti, which is really the most sublime thing that is not of this world, but is wonderfully to be found in this world by virtue of the presence of the great Vaishnavas. They are the carriers of that higher current, that inward carrying current. And it is connection with that which really gives us the highest sort of prospect and the highest type of satisfaction, the highest type of fulfillment. I was going over some things in the course of some translation work, and I encountered this discussion regarding the point of the nature of the jiva being Sat Chit Ananda. And there you'll find in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita a very, in that regard, a very poignant statement of Sanatana Goswami in the course of his discussion, where he explains that the jiva has the nature of being Sat, Chit and Ananda, which I think we're all acquainted with these terms. Sat, that it is existent; Chit, that it is conscious; and Ananda, that it experiences some type of positive, fulfilling experience, or joy, or pleasure, or bliss, or what have you. And he makes this statement that the jiva has this nature. But then in he writes, and he does this a number of times actually in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, where he writes something and then in his commentary he explains that this statement that was just made is drawn from such and such places in Srimad Bhagavatam or such and such places in the scripture, but really it's to be concluded or more finely understood as this. And then in the course of that, this is an instance of that where he goes on to say, actually the jiva has really no ananda. In and of itself, really none. It has a lack of suffering. In that sense it has ananda. But actual positive experience in itself, not really. And I mean, put it in kind of light terms, more that's what he has to say. That it is true the jiva's nature can be classified as that. But in practicality or in experience, what ananda is inherent in the jiva is like negligible. It's like, can be called the absence of suffering, really. In other words, it's not much, if you want to call it that. So the prospect of ananda comes from where? It comes from Krishna, right? It comes from higher connection. It comes in a simple sense, like Gurudev would quote that verse, Raso Baisa, that he is rasa, he is joy, he is ananda. It is only upon getting connection with him that the jiva finds ananda, real ananda, or ananda of far superior quantity and quality. And that connection with him then, more specifically, takes place by the cultivation of bhakti. So it is really only the experience, the grace that we receive from Guru, from the Vaishnava, from the carrier of that current of bhakti, that gives us that prospect and that connection. So really, without that, it's dry. It's like a pretty straight up conclusion. Like, it's just basically dry. And you may say, well, sense gratification is exciting, but this is the famous last words. In other words, someone who says, what do you mean there's no real pleasure or no happiness without Krishna? I'm having fun, It's like, well, let's watch how long that particular material enjoyment you're having right now lasts, And let's watch you go through the reverse form of that right after it's over in this life or the next one, and then we'll see how you feel. So nasate vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate swata. That which really exists does never not exist, and that which doesn't. Meaning we are existing, but who are we really? What understanding do we have? What fulfillment do we have? That's all really hanging in the balance. Beyond our existence, it's all pretty much loose and waiting, really, really necessarily waiting for the connection of Gurudev, for the connection of the Lord's grace, and Sukriti, Shraddha, all these things to come down. Really it is hinging on that in order for the jiva to get something clean, something substantial, some taste of the eternal, some taste of the higher plane, we can say the substance of the eternal. So, how much dependent we are upon that higher existence for our fulfillment. It is complete dependence. And thus, that we receive that connection it necessitates, complete devotion of ourselves, complete engagement in service to that thing. Cannot be otherwise. Not, no, that's a little extreme position, or why so much, it's just like, no, it must be. When we come to understand what kind of grade of opportunity or connection that this is in comparison to what alternative we have, the fact that we will be required to be of full service to that is this isn't like, a deal we have to consult our lawyer, meaning our mind, about it, try to calculate or think about, or worry if it's too much or something like that. It'll be the kind of deal where we're jumping on it so quick, like this is the greatest opportunity which might be passed. We're getting a huge thing for very little. It will be felt like that. And so to have that growth of perspective, to have that feeling, that touch, of that higher thing. That really is itself, you could say, the proof of the pudding. One way Bhaktivinoda Thakur, related to that, gave some similar logic, saying that some people like Muslims or others, they may object that to deity worship and say this is idol worship, this is evil, this is bad, or something like that. And then one of the points Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes in that regard is, he says, if it is observed that really only people who have higher touch with divinity become detached from things of the mundane, then how is it that all these Vaishnavas who for so long have been engaged in the worship of the deity have become so much detached from mundanity? In other words, you can judge externally whether this is quote-unquote idolatry or this is really a spiritual transaction, and you have to look practically at the result and say, is this person worshipping an idol or is this person worshipping Krishna? Well, the symptoms of worshipping something spiritual are detachment from the mundane and the growth of spiritual perception and devotion. So if we're observing those symptoms, those effects in this person, then how can you say that their worship is not of spiritual nature? This is a point that he makes. So connected with that verse, Bhakti pareshanu bhava virakti anyatra. So in that connection, that this extraordinary prospect is to be found, and for those who get that connection, who apply themselves to the process of cultivating it, of appreciating it, then more and more they come to realize, wow, I'm getting so much for so little, And even, at some stage it may seem, oh, this requires so much of me to get. But then a little while down the line we might think, well, I might think it's a big deal that I'm giving such a high percentage of myself, but what's the value of that anyway? Like, who am I? Is it really so noble or so grand that me, some dysfunctional, ignorant, confused, annoying person is like, managing to be a little bit functional? Is that, to be given a medal and a garland and adored or something? I was like, well, actually that's kind of square one, that's coming into balance with, you can say, what is spiritually normal. And is itself its own reward. So anyhow, these verses of Kulashekar are very beautiful and very strong, giving us a very clear-cut sense of our aspiration and showing a nice, what can you say, some foundation for this statement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, the Lord himself, saying that I don't aspire for all these things that may seem to be powerful or desirable in this world, but I aspire only for that connection with you, only for that state of unconditional devotion, which is to say, I aspire for that connection with that ultimate thing that makes these things trifling. So to have this clarity of aspiration is a great blessing in our life. Hare Krishna. Okay, that's my spontaneous formation of content for a class that had no theme or structure. Hare Krishna. Would anyone like to make a comment or ask a question? related.
Well, it is kind of, but not directly, I guess. It's sort of, I guess, quite practical, but in this, with this perpetual tendency towards forgetfulness and distraction, can you please share any thoughts on what we can practically do for remembrance and like continued focus?
Well, this tendency we have to be distracted comes from our mundane conditioning. It's the acquired mental state we have. So, on the one hand, we may say, "Oh, well, this is kind of embarrassing," or "This is rather unfortunate," But on the other hand, we can say, we also, at this moment, having, to some extent, we can say, and at least in our present life, come to have a focus and an aspiration that's not of the nature of the thinking that got us this condition in the first place. Does that make sense? In other words, that we've turned the corner, or this conditioning that we've gotten, we've turned the corner to the point of starting to cultivate something that's not going to exacerbate that, but is going to curb that, or ultimately it's going to wipe it clean, we're told. The power of the holy name, the power of the cultivation of bhakti is that Chaito Darpana Marjana. All the clutter in the mind is wiped clean. So we are in the process, the cleaning is going on, and ideally we're giving the maximum of our energy to that positive development, not succumbing to it and then engaging in behavior that will perpetuate it. And so along that way, then we are encountering some friction or some difficulty where we want to go forward, we want to get out of it, we don't want to perpetuate it, but at the same time it's still there, it still pulls upon us, and we still sometimes feel susceptible to it or act upon it, and all of a sudden we're thinking about so many things or doing something else or whatever. So for this condition, we have Vaidhi Bhakti, we have regulations, we have rules, we have force. we have something to push us through that. There's no other real way to say it. We have these rules like always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna, and we have this encouragement to say Sarva Khan Bolovite Vidi Nahiyar. There is no rule but to always chant the holy name. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains that the proof of our surrender or our aspiration to surrender will be illustrated by our continuous chanting of the holy name. Jai. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Giridhari Ju Ki Jai. So we have to practice. Gurudev, in this connection we can say, he defines sadhana as doing now what our mind doesn't want to do. So in other words, doing what is beneficial and effective for our spiritual objective, whether or not at that given moment that's what the mind is inclined to or not inclined to. And sometimes pushing through that, or giving some assertion with the intellect and the heart to say, no, we're going to do this, not that. And Jiva Goswami Prabhu, when he's speaking about archan or deity worship, then he says that the primary benefit of this is that it helps persons who are struggling from lethargy and distraction. And in lethargy means just the tendency to, if you sit down for a minute, you don't really want to get up. It's not exactly well, why are you laughing? It doesn't exactly mean laziness, it means more like kind of like inertia, like can't quite get functioning. Anyway, I forget the terms. It's kadarja, I think, is one of them. I forget. There's two particular words that he uses in that regard. To say that practical engagement, physical engagement, will be very helpful for persons who are struggling with that. So, you know, it may be written kind of like a clause. For those who may encounter this, this will also be helpful. But it's sort of like, at least in, you may say, generic observation, it's kind of like, who does not fit in that category? You know, very few people. So, in the way Guru Maharaj said it, is also talking about worship, but more broadly about seva, saying that we will feel some kind of greater sense of reality to our attempt to serve with physical engagement. Even though actually the subtle engagement is given a higher position in this shastra, or said to be more progressive, for persons who are struggling with that samskar of distraction and lethargy and so on, then the physical service that incorporates a physical aspect is prescribed and said to be ideal for them. So, hence, we can say the system developed by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur of keeping people busy, right? Making ashrams and prescribing deity worship and sankirtan and preaching and all these things to keep us actively engaged in the midst of and with ideally full opportunity for continuous remembrance and subtle or internal cultivation of Krishna consciousness along the way. And then according to someone's development, they may withdraw somewhat from as much physical engagement if they're reaching that state of purity that enables them to continue in that way. But in like scriptural talk or things, this is the thing, is that if we just try to sit still and meditate or just chant all the time, then we're not able to do that practically. And Saraswati Thakur, in fact, he wasn't in favor of that, or he said, when we're unable, or we're in a state of being unable to really do that in a clear and uninhibited way, then we're better off engaging in practical service under the guidance of a Vaishnava and going through that process of purification. And just as in the Gita, the point of Chitta Shuddhi is made repeatedly, saying, don't try pranayam, don't try being a yogi if you haven't done karma yoga. If you try to practice direct meditation without having first purified your consciousness, it's just going to be miserable. That's like the gist of the first 3-4 chapters of Gita. It's basically that. Without Chitta Shuddhi, without the purification of the inner self, higher knowledge and concentration or meditation, not going to happen really. And then in the line of exclusive devotion, then high power is attributed to the practices of bhakti, the power of the holy name. But Mahaprabhu, as Guru Maharaj pointed out, he gives Chitta Shuddhi also as the first point in his teachings, as equivalent to Chaitodarpana Marjanam, that first that process must be effected, that all that mental acquired conditioning has to be set clean in order for the natural or spontaneous flow of devotion to move. So you can say in the process of sadhana, then that's what we're encountering and that's what we're coming up against. And it's not that it's wrong or it's bad or it's not to be expected or I'm one of the only people who has to deal with that or all these kind of things. It's like, that's like the most normal thing there is, really, to be confronted with that and to feel some dissatisfaction in the process of trying to work through that. So it's there. And what's ideal is to have some responsible engagement. That was Guru Maharaj's main point when he was asked, how do we control the mind? And his answer, responsible service. That when you have that responsibility, that will pull upon you, that will pull you into the right focus and state of mind, even if you are distracted. So, association of the Vaishnavas, responsible engagement, ongoing chanting of the holy name, these are the things that we have. And, side by side, prajalpa, as we know, is something to be avoided. And we could say maybe like modern category of prajalpa would be like visual prajalpa on my phone, like texting and watching so many random things that aren't really necessary. That kind of thing can like keep that frenzy or that looseness spinning around all the time, or we're thinking more about our phone than about Krishna. I'm sitting there and then it's like I'm like grabbing my phone to see what's happening on my phone more than I'm Hare Krishna. More so than I'm chanting the name of the Lord. Then that can give us some feeling of, how can I make some adjustments in my personal practice? And sometimes if we really zoom in on this, it can be like, this is kind of sad. But then, okay, it is what it is. Let's do something good and just keep up with the positive, steady approach. We can't expect it to just disappear overnight, but if we're steady and we're sincere in the practice, then gradually we will see some change and we'll find ourselves maintaining or the right sense coming within us, even automatically or naturally it'll feel that way. Gurudev described that after, I think he was describing like the first night after he got initiated, he was chanting and then all of a sudden it was like automatically he was chanting. It was just coming automatically to him and he was so happy with that. So, and he described it in a way to say that will happen to you. There'll be a time when it won't be like, oh yeah, now I need to be doing this again. It'll just be like happening. It'll just be like running, coming of its own accord. So that's there. It can be, it must be, it will be. And if we can stick to the process, then that day will come closer and closer. And, also mentally, some people have a little more energy moving around than others, it seems. Some people seem, they're quite, little, physical engagement, and they're peaceful, Other people, they're just like, wing, wing, wing. It's like, can't quite keep them still, And the irony I find is that some of the people that would do the best with some physical engagement are the ones that are like the least inclined to do that. They're like really mental guys. They're like the last guys to go and just cool down with some physical engagement, and they just like keep going with it. And then it's like, and they're going like, why am I like this? What's going on? Like, this is so difficult. And then they're doing the thing that's the cause, and they're like, and then the engine starts to heat up a little bit, and they're going like, why am I overheating? So some balance in engagement is ideal for everyone. Okay, well, there's my freestyle ideas on this subject. And we may also sometimes we can feel something in our heart. We can, our heart can give us some relief from so much surging of mental energy. If we just bring our focus into our faith and into our heart, then sometimes so many thoughts that seem so important or seem critical, suddenly they aren't so much anymore. And the nature of things is that we'll never get our head around everything. We'll never have everything organized just right, or have it all making sense just perfect, or have it all the way we think it ought to be. There'll always be some little bit incongruent, little bit disorganized, little bit here or there, and because the mind, it doesn't actually have the facility to accommodate Krishna, His will, His plan, His everything. It just doesn't. And if we become excessively concerned with some contradictions or some imperfections or some ambiguities along the way, then we ultimately can miss our fortune. We can go off the track. There's a line like that in Gita, actually. I think it's the second to last verse of chapter 4, where after all these points are made about sacrifice, it's like, basically anybody who's of any value is engaged in some kind of cultivation of sacrifice. And then he lists so many types: the yogis, the jnanis, the karmis, they're all doing some kind of sacrifice. Without that, forget about it. But then after so much glorification of the culture of sacrifice, then at the end he says, but those persons who have no knowledge, or have knowledge but yet don't believe, or believe but always have doubts, they ultimately don't get it. He gives some strong point like that to say that we can be thwarted in our attempt by our calculating mind, and some no doubt do diligence to acquire an appropriate understanding of things and Siddhanta and everything. Of course, we don't want to diminish that. That's necessary. But there can also come a point of excessive preoccupation with detail or facts or theory or peripheral information and so many things, where maybe we lose the real focus, and we foster a state of indecision or lack of full commitment, which is actually the one thing that we need to really get where we need to go. We need faith. Like, that is the basis, right? Shradhavanjan hoy bhakti adhikari. Uttama Madhya Kamishta Shraddha Anusari. One who has faith is qualified for bhakti and is classified as a beginner, an intermediate, or an advanced devotee according to their faith. So, strength of faith. This is no small matter. This is a great matter. And when our faith is very strong, then also so many things that come up in the mind can be, wiped clean, wiped away, let be. There can be some deeper sense of knowing and affirmation that can have some discernment as to which matters are worthy of how much attention and to what degree of detail. And when we're right to remain with conviction and you could say simplicity of focus in order to further our endeavor in service. So, as we go through the process, then bhajana kriya, some engagement, responsible service, sadhu sangha, association, and faith. With that also we will overcome so much mental clutter. Everything's going to be all right. Really? Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's useful, right? Whatever predicament we encounter, as bewildering as it may be, it's all happening under His loving eye. It's all happening in due course for some necessary adjustment and betterment of myself. So let it be. No need to get too excited, too much in a frenzy about anything. Not that we just become like, there is some balance necessary to that. Everything's fine, so I don't need to really analyze or care about anything, it's just fine. Not quite entirely like that. We want to consciously engage with the life that we're living, the experiences that we're encountering, and learn from them and allow them to benefit us, draw out the mercy, the wonder that's actually in every arrangement and in everything that's engineered by our blessed Lord. We want to give some attention to that, but we can say there's the excessive critical analysis or confusion or bewilderment or mental speculation, and it can go a lot in this direction, and it can also become too simplistic and to the point where we're just the actual lesson or the actual thing that's coming to adjust us, we're just ignoring that and just saying, whatever, it's fine as it is, or something like that. So we want to find that middle track where we're able to draw out, able to perceive and appreciate and be adjusted by the grace that's coming to us throughout our life, through the Vaishnavas, through the Shastra, through Gurudev, through the environment as a whole. And find that point of balance, and that balance is mediated by our faith and Sambandha Gyan, and with that we can try. Hare Krishna. All right, well, shall we conclude for the evening? Anyone want to say anything else, or shall we? Sakal Chadiya Bhai, Shraddha Devir Gunagai, Jar Kripa Bhakti Dite Pare. So, brothers and sisters, let's, not worry about anything else and sing the glories of faith. by whose grace we may attain bhakti. Then, did anybody like to sing Hari Haraya Nama Krishna? Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama. Jadavaya Madhavaya Shavaya Nama. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Nidani Gopi Madhanama. Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra. Radha Jaya Rupa Sanatana Bhakta Raghunath. Jiva Gopal Jai Gosai Gauri Charana Vandana. Jai जय सपरिकार शिशि गुरु गौरंग राधा गिरिधरी जू की जय। जय विष्णुपाद श्रील भक्ति निर्मलाचार्य महाराज की जय। चैतन्य सरस्वताचार्य वृंद की जय। ओम विष्णुपाद श्रील भक्ति सुंदर गोविंद देव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय।